Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of League X NBA. I'm your host, Roberto, here with.
and I am Carlos.
Thanks again for joining us this week. How are you doing, Carlos? What's popping with you?
Pretty good. New jersey came in for me in the mail the other day, and I got my Anthony Davis jersey, so I'm pretty happy about that.
hmm
Um, and I also started playing this game called Rocket League because my friend told me to get it, and I'm currently addicted to it.
That's cool. What do you play on, by the way?
I play on my Nintendo Switch a lot, so I don't know. I just try to play that. I play Rocket League and Pikmin just to de-stress.
That's cool. What you have for lunch today?
I had McDonald's, just like I had chicken nuggets. So yeah,
Uh,
pretty good day so far for me. How's your day going?
it is good. Had a busy day at work. A little tired, but I'm happy to be here. I had in and out. I take my lunch around 10:45, 10:50. So right before the lunch rush, so I'm able to get to in and out. There's like 4 cars, and I get my meal, and I'm pretty happy. I would usually not get in and out because the lines are like 30, 40 cars, and um, yeah, yeah. Speaking of articles of clothing, I'm wearing this is a Team Liquid hoodie. It's more their streetwear like brand they kind of carry. A lot of teams have either merch or clothing, and is one of the pieces they have. I really like it. It's pretty comfortable. Um, but yeah,
And yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
and I'm wearing my Lakers champions jersey.
Oh, nice, nice.
So just representing.
Okay, well, okay. Well, anyways, welcome to the show, guys. Today we're gonna be speaking of the format, and I mean, sorry, not the format. We're gonna talk about 2021, some of the predictions we have for this upcoming year, and we're gonna also kind of have a quick game where I do power rankings for the NBA and Carlos does power rankings for the League of Legends teams. But then we'll have actual power rankings, which we will reveal towards the ending of the show. So stick around. Thanks again for all your comments you guys gave us on the last episode. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the feedback. It was very well received. Um, and yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. We'll do our best to respond. Anyways, let's get started, Carlos.
Yep.
So we're gonna be
And
speaking. Go ahead.
oh yeah, I was saying yeah, when we did our power rankings, I don't know anything about League of Legends, and he didn't know anything about NBA.
Oh yeah,
So
I don't.
if you guys get mad in the comments, or if you guys have something to say, make sure to make it's a nice comment or something. But yeah, we're both ignorant of each other's sports, so
Yeah,
don't drink it with a grain of salt.
yeah. But you guys can totally go hard on our power rankings. Like whatever I say about league, you guys can go in on, and whatever Carlos says about the NBA, you guys can go in on, right, Carlos?
Yeah, go ahead, call me a hater, but yeah, go for it.
We're gonna start off by actually talking about the format. Seems like there has been some format changes for both of our leagues. So why don't you start us off and talk about the updates?
Yeah, so last week I mentioned that top 8 teams of each conference, the Western and the Eastern Conference, make the playoffs generally, which is 16 out of 30 teams, which is over 50% of the league. Well, now this year, due to COVID and due to foreseeing schedule changes, what's going to happen now is the top 10 teams of each conference have the opportunity to participate in the playoffs. So the top 6 teams of the Western and the Eastern Conference, they qualify no matter what. So they get an automatic bid and they'll be in the playoffs for sure. If you are seeded 7 through 10, however, you are now going to be participating in a play-in tournament, which means you're not going to be guaranteed the playoffs. You have to earn your way into a playoff bid. So the 7 seeded team will play the number 10 seeded team, and the number 8 seeded team will play the number 9 seeded team. So this allows a lot of teams who are like on the edge to pretty much upset a number 7 team and make their way to the playoffs. And again, those winners of those play-in tournaments will play the top 2 seeds. So they'll be those top 2 seeds will be heavily favored, but just having the opportunity to get into the playoffs is a really good accomplishment for a lot of teams. So when I review my power rankings later on throughout the show, I'll be showing you how I foresee the top 6 teams going of each league of each Western and Eastern Conference, and I will also be revealing who I think will be the 7 through 10 seeds in those play-in tournaments. And the
Hmm.
way the play-in tournaments work, last year it was best out of two. So like the higher seeded team only had to win one time in order to advance, and the lower seeded team only had to win twice, both games, in order
Mm,
to advance.
that's cool.
So I don't know how it's gonna be this year. Probably the same way. But if you're a 7 or an 8 seed, all you gotta do is win one game, one game and advance. If you're the lower seed, you gotta win both games, and then you get that playoff spot.
Okay, that's cool. So wait, how many games to play in the regular season again?
Yeah. So this year's gonna be around 72 instead of the usual
Oh,
82.
fuck.
So and some of the yeah, I already foresee some games getting postponed, some games getting rescheduled. The league has only revealed the first half of the schedule so far,
Mhm.
so it's still up in flux where it's going to be headed. But preseason just started this past Thursday. Preseason's going on right now. The first day of the regular season begins next Tuesday, December 22nd, and that's pretty much the day that we all been looking forward to, just to see how all these new teams are lining up and looking. And normally in a normal season, Christmas time is when like the casual fans start tuning in, and it just so happens that this year will be starting around Christmas, so it really lines up perfectly. Christmas time. I know a lot of people, a lot of Americans during the NFL season. Thanksgiving is a time of the year where they watch football, while Christmas is dedicated to watching basketball. So it's gonna be really exciting with the matchups, and yeah, we'll see how Roberto did in his power rankings, and we can see how those look right
Uh,
now.
I'm not looking forward to that. Okay, on the league side, they actually just revealed some pretty major changes to this year's format. So, same as last year, 10 teams. Last year there was two splits, um, 18 games each split, and then spring split didn't really matter except for this one tournament, the midseason invitational. But didn't have any stakes in the World Championship qualification, which people criticize. So this year, the year kicks off with a tournament. So the top two teams from last year, so number one, number two, TSM and FlyQuest, will draft the league into two groups of five. So does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay. So then top four of each group go into the knockout stage and single elimination. And it's literally just a kickoff tournament just to see how everyone's doing. So it'll be really fun, I guess, kind of going into the tournament, going into this season and just having a tournament right off the bat is gonna like be really controversial, give a lot of talking points. And it'll be really cool to see like, oh, this team ended at like fourth, fifth place, or even like last place, and now they ended up top two, top three. So those
yeah.
storylines are gonna be opening up, which is really cool. Um, After that, they're gonna play best of one double round robin. And this year they're gonna cram it into 6 weeks instead of 9. Number one will go to represent North America at the Mid-Season Invitational, which is one of the two international tournaments that we have. What's very different this year is that the your your spring record will now carry on to your summer record. So let's say you ended spring and let's say you ended, for example, 9-9, you're gonna go into summer with that same record. So if you ended up really well in spring, it will be really helpful because it'll give you, maybe if you go undefeated in the spring, you can have a buffer zone in case you slip up during the summer season. So that's gonna be huge for anyone that does well. It's gonna reward teams that try hard the whole season because in the past we've had teams that do well in spring and in summer they'll falter a bit. So hopefully this will give them enough time to maybe get back on their feet. Um, Other than that, there's gonna be a triple round robin, which is over 9 weeks in the summer. Top 8 teams go into playoffs, but the playoffs have been fine tuned to avoid rematches right away. Sometimes we've had teams like play, for example, third against fifth, and then maybe fifth will lose and go to losers bracket, and they'll come back, and then they'll play the third place again. So they're gonna make it so that rematches don't happen until as late as possible. They're gonna reseed. So um, let's say for example like 4 beats 3, and then uh 3 goes into the losers bracket and they climb their way back up. Next time they meet, 4 will have side selection, which is the advantage of being in the top seed. But last year they didn't give that. So this year is a huge change. I think people are really happy about that. A huge change that's going to happen this year is that there's going to be 45 regular games instead of the 36 of last year, which is crazy when you tell me there's 70 NBA games because, I would say NBA, like the NBA and basketball is a more physically demanding sport. But yeah, so 45 games instead of 36 this year, and then top 3 from the summer split go to Worlds. So it's pretty laid out to be. It's making it more interesting as a viewer, and just having that kickoff tournament will be really good to get the audience engaged. So yeah, we're now gonna go into the mini game. So we're gonna talk about just our fun power rankings. So our producer Eric, if you can show what my predictions for the 2021 NBA season is going to be. So what happened was Carlos gave me 10 teams out of the 30, and he told me to rank them. And I don't know. We didn't do any research for this. This is just a for fun bit. We didn't do any research. I just kind of went by historical context, word of mouth, and the logo, if I thought it was cool or not. So let me know when it's on the screen, Eric. I don't know if you want to. Oh, it's on the screen already? Okay, perfect. So give me a second. Let me. Can Carlos see it? I don't know if Carlos can see it.
I cannot see it.
Okay, that's fine. Eric, do you mind sharing your screen? Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah. So when does your season start again?
I think January
didn't catch
21st.
that.
I believe it's our season tournament kickoff. Let me double check that for anyone that actually wants to see. Let's see. So, Carlos, can you see my power rankings? That's what I.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Oh,
what do you
okay.
think?
I see your power rankings.
Wait, it
The
ended.
stream closed.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I'll go ahead and send it to you in a private message, Carlos.
Okay.
So just so you know, here I'll read it to you, Carlos, and then Eric can show it to you. So number 1, put the Lakers because I've heard that they're the returning champions, right? And they have LeBron, so I thought it was pretty obvious. Number 2, I put the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh wow.
Why? I don't know. I think I've heard that they're good. Number 3, I put Oklahoma City Thunder because I like the name. Number 4, I put the Clippers because I see on my timeline that they were good last year, and I think LeBron expected them to make it further last year, and they didn't. So number 5, I put the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know why, honestly. I think at this point I started guessing. Number 6, I put the Miami Heat. I heard that they're good, but not that good. And then I put the Houston Rockets because I just think they're not as good. I heard the Golden State Warriors are bad, so I also put them after the Rockets. And then I put the Sacramento Kings 9th, and I topped it off with the Chicago Bulls at number 10. This is just honestly just guessing. I don't know what you think, if I'm even close at all.
Yeah. So right off the bat, yeah, number 1 looks like the number 1 team in the league. So I agree with that. That's going to be the Lakers. They got they got LeBron, Anthony Davis signed for longer contracts, and they reboosted their bench. So I agree with that. Number 1 should be the Lakers.
Mhm.
The Cleveland Cavaliers, they used to be good, like when LeBron was on the Cavaliers,
Okay.
and LeBron's no longer on the Cavaliers, so they're actually one of the worst teams in the NBA now. So
Okay.
it's kind of but it's kind of they used to be really, like when LeBron's on their team, they always make the finals. They're always like on top of their conference, and now they're like bottoming out and barely holding to relevance.
Mhm.
Oklahoma City Thunder last year they made the playoffs. They were really scrappy underdog, but now they traded away their best player. Chris Paul was traded from the Thunder to the Suns. Steven Adams was traded away to the Pelicans. So they're pretty much selling away all their best players for draft picks, and they're pretty much tanking for the future now. So Oklahoma City Thunder generically this year would be a low seeded team.
Mhm.
The Clippers, when you had number 4, yeah, I think that they are a contender Even though I'm a Laker fan, I think the Clippers will be a force to reckon with. They have Kawhi back, they have Paul George back, they reboosted their bench as well, and it's all about they have that little brother mentality of just like when are we gonna be the Lakers? The Lakers always owning LA and all over LA. All the fans always talk about the Lakers and the Dodgers, and the Clippers have not taken over the city yet. So just the Clippers are looking this year to make their first ever Western Conference Finals, and we'll see about that.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So this is kind of random, but how does the logistics of sharing a stadium work for the Lakers and the Clippers?
Yeah, so the Lakers and the Clippers they share a stadium, Staples Center together, along with the LA Kings. The LA Kings
Or
are
hockey?
the hockey team.
Okay.
So pretty much they all schedule different events on different days. So or even sometimes the same day. So sometimes like the Clippers play like on the afternoon, and the Lakers play later on during the evening. So there was an instance when all three teams made the playoffs, all three being the Lakers, Clippers, and Kings. They all made the playoffs at the same time. So they pretty much had to share the same vicinity. That to change the hockey arena into a basketball arena like within hours. So they have staff working to make sure everything's like lined up. And yeah, the Lakers and Clippers have different like home courts, so different styles, like different logos, different things that they change around the Staples Center. So it's the same venue, but like it looks a lot different. Usually, when you go to a Laker game, the Lakers are in a darker environment, and the Clippers are in a more brightened environment.
Hmm.
And they also play different music, like when the players like pump up music, pump
Mhm.
up songs. All the teams have different um,
When do they
songs.
play each other often?
Yeah, so they play each other only 4 times a year, and during preseason, they play each other I think twice. So yeah, they play each other often, and
W-
usually when the Lakers are at the Clippers, it's usually like 60 or 70% Laker fans at a Clippers home game. So it's kind of crazy when you
Would
see it like that.
would it be insane if they face each other in the finals? Would that just
Yeah,
mean
so like
7 games in a row at LA?
yeah, like last year, like they wanted that to happen. Like everyone last year was saying that's going to be the Western Conference Finals, Lakers Clippers, Lakers Clippers. They were the two best teams all of last year, and obviously before COVID hit,
Hmm.
everybody was hyping that up because like it was going to be 7 straight games at Staples Center
Hmm.
without anybody moving, and all the LA fans were like, all the Laker fans, I mean, were all saying we're going to take over the Clippers, we're going to take over all their home games. And pretty much all of LA, especially after the Kobe passing, was all hyped up for
Hmm.
that matchup, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. The Clippers lost in their semifinals, and we didn't get to see them face the Lakers. But I think this will be the year we finally get to see that matchup: LeBron versus Kawhi. We've always seen them
Is
as rivals.
is the guy Blake Griffin still on that team?
Yeah, Blake Griffin, he got traded
He's like
away
a
like I
oh,
think
he got traded
4 years
away.
ago.
Wasn't he
Yeah,
like a redhead, or am I thinking of someone else?
yeah, he used to be like a guy who dunks. But yeah, they traded him away. They traded Chris Paul away, and now they're like a new revamped team. They play a lot more meaner,
Okay.
with a lot more grit now. But they're still a contender. I think the Clippers, in my opinion, are going to be like one of the main forces to unseat the Lakers as champions this year. And I think one of the teams from LA will ultimately win the championship.
Okay. Sorry, we went on a tangent there, but you were at the Clippers, and then next team.
Yeah. So number 5 is another team that I can see winning the championship this year is the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets. They added Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant used to be on the Warriors. Now he's finally healed up from his Achilles injury that he suffered during the 2019 Finals.
Mhm.
So he's back. They got Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving. He's a very controversial player, but he's really talented as well. Um, he can elevate this team into a finals contender.
Why is he
And never
controversial?
controversial because he says all his statements. He hates talking to the media.
Uh,
He's a flat
oh
earther,
god.
so
Okay, just
he
stop.
thinks that
Stop. Yeah, just move next.
he's yeah. and he's really passionate about what his beliefs are.
Yeah.
It kind of rubs a lot of people the wrong way. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
That's
and
fine.
they're gonna be one of the storylines I talk about in my event in another throughout later on in this video. So keep an eye
Okay.
on the Brooklyn Nets. They're gonna be really interesting to follow. Number 6, the Miami Heat. Miami Heat. They were last year's runners up. They faced the Lakers in the 2020 NBA Finals. They lost in 6 games, and Miami Heat. I think they still have those same pieces to make another finals run. They still have Jimmy Butler. They still got Bam, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. They got all the pieces there. They got a good coach, good fans, and I think they are a really good contender. Miami Heat. I think Roberto that was a team that LeBron used to be a part of when we were in
Mhm.
high school. So that's how
Yes.
you heard of the Miami Heat a lot. So
Yeah.
when LeBron was in the Miami Heat, he won those championships with Miami. So LeBron so far he's won 2 championships with Miami, one with Cleveland Cavaliers, and then one with the Lakers.
Okay.
So he has 4
Four
championships,
four rings. Okay.
4 rings. And Michael Jordan has 6. So that's where the
Okay.
controversy
Oh,
starts.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's getting close.
Yeah. Number 7, another team I'll be talking about later on throughout this video, the Houston Rockets. Um,
That's where Jeremy
yeah,
Lin was on, right?
yeah. Jeremy Lin used to be a Houston Rocket, and they traded him away. I think he plays in China now, so I think he should be back in the league, honestly. But yeah, Houston Rockets really controversial. Their owner is a really big. That's just how I put this nicely. He's a he's the one who wrote the book. Shut up and let me do it my way, pretty much. So he's a no, he wrote the book. Shut up and listen. So he
Oh,
rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Um, and he just fired their general manager, fired their coach, and he just traded away their second best player, Russell Westbrook, to Washington. So it's gonna be pretty much a brand new team this year. Um, with James Harden, we'll talk about that later. While James Harden factors into whether the Rockets can be contenders or not contenders later on. Number 8, Golden State Warriors. Normally, Golden State Warriors would be a contender throughout the season, but their second best player, Clay Thompson, ended up tearing his Achilles, so it's not looking good for him. He's going to be out for the rest of the season, and the Warriors are just going to be a fringe playoff team, in my opinion. They still have Steph Curry, they still have Draymond Green, they still got the rookie James Wiseman, but it's going to be tough just competing. Number 9, Sacramento Kings. They have a good young squad, bunch of like second, third year, fourth year players that are about to like make a rise in the league, but still they're too young for me, and they're not gonna really make a statement. And number 10, I agree with their Chicago Bulls. They're not gonna be that good.
I
They
put
used to
them
be,
last because last episode you said they were dog shit.
yeah.
So
They haven't been good since the '90s. They were kind of good when they had Derrick Rose in the early 2010s, but
mhm.
yeah, it's just really sad. But overall, your ranking was pretty good. Except Cavaliers and Thunder, I would move them to the way bottom. But besides that, looks
I
good to
mean,
me.
all right,
Yeah,
okay,
it could have been worse. It could have been worse. Let's just say
okay,
that.
okay. Well, now it's Carl's turn. Carl's about to show me his power rankings for the 2021 LCS League of Legends Spring. Um, so Eric, tell me when you've pulled that up. Okay, so it's up on the screen. So, okay, let's look. So my first impressions are that you're kind of on point, and we said we wouldn't do any research. Did you do any research?
I didn't do any research. So all of these rankings were just word of mouth or teams that I've heard my friends talk about.
Okay, so tell me what you've
So
heard of some of these teams that made you put them the way you did.
okay, so Cloud9. I know I saw my friend wearing a Cloud9 sweater a lot, and
Okay.
he was like watching something on his phone that regarded like Cloud9, like in the
Hmm.
championship or in the
Yeah.
tournament. So I was like, oh, they must be pretty good. I just saw the sweater. but I really
Okay.
didn't know anything about it. But yeah,
What about Team Liquid? Why did you put them number 2?
Team Liquid, that's a team you always talk about. That's a team that you have
Okay.
the sweater on. So I was like, oh, if he supports them, they must be pretty good. But they're not really winners. But I don't know. We'll see. That's just like my thing. Like, because I
And
know you don't like to cheer.
why is
Yeah,
Golden Guardians 3?
Golden Guardians. I recognize them because they're from the Golden State Warrior. So
Is that the only reason?
yeah, pretty
It's
much.
fine.
Yeah,
Okay, just wondering. Okay. And 100 Thieves 4, why?
100 Thieves. To be honest, I follow this person on Twitter. Who she always talks about. She's part of 100 Thieves, and she's a Twitch streamer. I think her name's like Nicolo or something.
Oh, God.
So it's like she always talk about 100 Thieves. Like, oh, her team must be pretty good.
Do you know
But
her relationship with the team?
I do not know. I thought she was
So,
actually. I thought she was actually part of the team.
no, so she's part of the team technically. It's like she's kind of like a partner streamer because they'll promote her, she'll promote them. They'll do things together. Like she promotes their like apparel, and they invite her to events. So it's like a mutual relationship. So that's the only reason we put them number 4.
Yeah, pretty much. I just recognize like the top 4 pretty much is like I just recognize them.
And then TSM 5, why?
Oh, the logo looks sick.
That's it?
Yeah, and they look
Okay.
like legit freaking contenders.
I feel like honestly, your power rankings, if you switch Golden Guardians and FlyQuest, you can make an argument that these are serious. Like, I mean, I don't agree with all of them because I'll show you mine a bit. But if you switch Golden Guardians and FlyQuest, you could honestly be like, these are my serious power rankings. And most League fans, they'll disagree with you, but they'll be like, oh, you're not delusional. So
Uh-huh.
it's kind of scary how almost close you are. Like, you are not that far off from like what most people would put. Like the only ones that I would change in here for you to make, and you could present it to, and like most League fans would be like Golden Guardians and FlyQuest. And then they would probably disagree and be like, oh no, like Cloud9 2, Team Liquid 1, for example, because that's what I did. But I'm surprised. What about the rest? Did any of the rest, like, why did you put FlyQuest last?
I don't know. I didn't like their logo that much, to be honest. It looked kind of like to me.
Okay.
It looked very generic. So you're telling me Golden Guardians is like one of the worst teams?
It's probably gonna be the worst team next season, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, more likely.
So okay.
Yeah.
I just like I thought like, oh my god, Bay Area Tech.
So they were
they're
good
having
last year. But remember,
okay.
so I won't talk about it too much, but like I mentioned last episode, Golden Guardians lost a lot of their funding because of NBA losing money. So they had to sell their team. Their team last year was the 4th best team, 4th or 5th, arguably. And they lost their funding. So they sold their team completely to 100 Thieves, which I'll talk about later. And because of that, Golden Guardians is going with what they call the best team made up of players you've never heard of. They're going with a bunch of
Oh.
randos. And if it works, they're geniuses. If they work, they will get the most bang for their buck. But it's probably not going to work.
So I see them like NBA equivalent rise as just like being, I don't know, just like the Charlotte Hornets, just like a team that got Gordon Hayward, just to
What does
join
that
them.
mean?
But
Oh,
like they're not gonna be as good, but they got like names like Gordon Hayward and a bunch of other guys you haven't heard of.
okay. And yeah. I mean, that's, yeah. And then FlyQuest, I mean, I'll show you mine a bit, like at the end. And it's kind of scary how close we are, actually. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Like you're like, I would only switch those 2, and you can make a case for it being like, any other
Yeah,
comments about? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, it's like because Cloud9 and Team Liquid is like what I always hear people talk about. I was like, are they rivals or are they like what are they?
I wouldn't say they're rivals. I don't think there's many rivalries nowadays. I think because so the biggest rivalry used to be TSM and COG, but COG's been so bad for so long, it's not really a rivalry anymore. I would say. So the thing is, and this is kind of a topic, but a lot of rivalries used to be between players, and a lot of these players are changing pretty fast lately. So esports is different in that a lot of fans identify with players mostly, or you have the few people that are like, oh, TSM, ride or die, or whatever. But most people, including myself, are fans of the players first and the team second, which is something that the teams themselves have had to like come to terms with, and how to like get a long lasting fan base. Unlike traditional sports, you don't get to be like, oh, that's my hometown team, that's why I cheer for them. Like, I'm sure, I don't know, some dog shit team, like who did you say was dog shit? The Thunder, Oklahoma City.
Yeah, the Thunder. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure people that are from Oklahoma City are probably like, oh, that's my team. Even if we're lost, that's my team, right? You don't have that in esports, and that's why the rivalries are mostly by players. Like we had the Bjergsen and Double Lives, which are they both just retired, but they had a pretty rivalry friendship thing going on. And other players, and I would say, if anything, the rivalries are between, like, for example, an example is this player called Damonte, for example. Damonte got kicked out of Dignitas a couple years ago, and now he likes beating his former team, So there's like, I wouldn't say there's like these classical-esque, games, at least not in North America anymore. It doesn't feel as loaded as before. Before it was more emotionally charged. Now it doesn't hit the same. But I think that just because the league's maturing, and the scene has changed a bit, it would be great to have some more, interesting narratives. But right now, I would say the narrative that North America is going into this year is a year of redemption. Everyone, North America is waiting for their next chance at playing at an international stage, and hope that they can, change people's perceptions of them. Because right now, everyone considers the worst region out of the main regions, and it's not even close right now. So that's kind of what we're waiting for, and that's pretty much the narrative this year. I don't think there's much infighting, because a lot of people, like, I personally don't care about any rivalries, because I care about North America doing well at the World Championship. That's like our playoffs. Like the way you feel about playoffs in the NBA, that's how we feel at the World Championship.
Yeah.
So there is some regional stuff, but it's more about your region, not really a specific team. Other than like TSM, I would say most fans are pretty fluid, dude. They're like team fluid. TSM is the only one that has people actually like ride or die, and that's because they're one of the OGs, I think, and they do a lot of winning. But this is gonna be a crazy year for them. I don't have much more to add to your for fun. Like I said, I'm impressed for the most part that you did so well.
Yeah, I just, the top four just based on like name recognition, but yeah, and the Evil Geniuses, I don't know, I like the name, but like, and yeah, Immortals, I should have put that higher, but I don't know, I'll just like, the last like 3 ones, I'll just be asking, yeah.
Dude, honestly, like from COG to Immortals, you could like, I think that's what I have. No, you're pretty close to what I have, but it's like, you're pretty spot on. Like, it's crazy. Like I said, only thing, and you'll see mine. The only thing that I would like change if I was in the Golden Guardians, and then you could argue that these are serious. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
and
so now,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, so like, yeah, what you're saying, so like, your rivalries are based off of more player rivalries, like a player leaving a team and going to another team, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's a way. I mean, obviously the least to team rivalry, but so very few teams. Like, I think since the League of Legends, like LCS, so that's what we call our league, LCS, started. I think the only teams that have won have been Cloud9, TSM, Team Liquid, and COG. So 4 out of the 10 teams have ever won. And so Cloud9 won at the beginning, like a couple years, like 2 in a row. Then TSM won like 2, 3 in a row. Then COG won like 2 in a row. Then TSM won 4 in a row. Then Team Liquid won 4 in a row. And then this past year, Cloud9, and then TSM won. So it's usually the same people at the top. So like it's like the rivalry just isn't there. It was mostly between players, because even though 4 teams have won, most of these championships were split between like Double Lift and Bjergsen, and they both just retired. Like, we just lost like the 2 biggest players ever for the North America, and it would be horrible if it wasn't for a couple of additions, but I'll get into that later. And yeah, anyways, so now it's time for the next part of the show, we're going to be talking about some of the storylines that we want to follow this year. And before, actually, I'll let Carlos go first, and then I want to talk about something myself. But anyways, Carlos, hit us with your first storyline that you want us to follow this year.
All right, so storyline number 1 is about the Houston Rockets. In particular, is about James Harden. Normally, during this time, players already reported camp and already playing with the team. Well, James Harden, he took a while to report to camp. He was going to strip clubs. He was avoiding the team contact. And recently, he started showing up to preseason games. He the first game was today, and when he arrived to the game, he showed up overweight, and people are just speculating like, wait, what's with this guy's deal? He still has 2 years left in his contract, and he's pretty much not giving a shit anymore about his team. He pretty much wants to go to a contender. He wants to go to a team that he can win a championship ring. Particularly, he wants to go to Brooklyn Nets, or to the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll see how the Houston Rockets deal with this. Again, he has 2 years left of his contract with Houston, and they could pretty much keep him. They don't have to trade him away. And with him on the team, they'll still be contenders. They'll be a likely a top 6 seed if they keep James Harden, along with John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and their bench. However, if they do trade James Harden, that team will most likely not make the playoffs, and we'll see potentially a team in the East overtake the number 1 seed and possibly become a championship contender. So keep an eye on James Harden and what he decides to do.
So, can team owners do anything about this guy's behavior?
I mean, they could fine him, but he's still going to get paid that contract no matter what. And it's pretty much what this era has become. It's like players have like taken over the league now, and they're demanding trades a lot more often than before.
Oh shit!
So
This is on this is kind of this mirrors like the LCS pretty well actually, because that's kind of what goes on with the LCS. Anyways, go on.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah, so like we've seen this a lot before already. So Anthony Davis, he used to be with the Pelicans. He demanded a trade to the Lakers with 1 year remaining in his contract. We saw this with Jimmy Butler wanting to leave the Timberwolves to go to the Miami Heat. So we've seen this happening a lot more often throughout this decade than in previous eras of the NBA, where in the 80s and 90s, you like Magic Johnson, Lakers, Larry Bird, Celtics, Michael Jordan, Bulls. You thought of a player, and they just stay with their team no matter what.
Like a franchise player.
That they're out the lows and the highs. And now
Dude, this is crazy.
what you're seeing now, team players like they just want
No
to
loyalty.
team up, yeah, because they don't see loyalty from the office. Because the office, again, they can cut players, they can trade them whenever they want. So like the players see it both ways. Like, you know what, I know I still have 2 years left of my contract. I'm gonna leave too. So we have players teaming up with their friends, or
Dude,
just
this is crazy.
wanting
It's crazy
to
because
leave
it just mirrors like what happens with League kind of. But I'm gonna tell you what League did to try to like slow that down a bit. So what they did was they made it so that if you're with a team, I think 5 years or more, that team is allowed to give you equity in the company. And if you have equity, you want your team to do well because you want the team to be worth a lot, and you'll be invested in the longevity of the team because then you have stocks, So only I think like 2 or 3 players were eligible for that kind of prize. But yeah, the LCS we don't have franchise players anymore. Like at least not anymore. We used to, but we were starting to see people just get moved around a lot. Like it seems there's no loyalty from either side nowadays. I think teams want to win and they want to win now, and they'll do whatever it takes. And if you're not cutting it, I think with God, I want to go into it, but like with Double Lift being, I want to go into it so badly, but it's just such a long story. About Double Lift leaving Team Liquid and going to TSM. I think with Doublelift being a franchise player being moved to TSM and Team Liquid still being successful has probably killed the idea of franchise players because teams are starting to see that like there is talent, young, hungry talent that wants to play. But anyways, that just reminds me what you were kind of talking about. But that's so interesting. So are there any chances this guy gets traded or no?
I'm seeing it like most likely he stays because if they do trade him, like there's not a good enough package to get back for him. You didn't get like a bunch of like draft picks,
Mhm.
like middle draft picks or bench players. You're not gonna get like a star player back.
What
So because James Harden is considered like to be like a top 10 player, so you
do
can't
other
just get that guy away. Yeah.
do other teams like let's say the other team owners hear that he's acting up, can they just not sign him?
No, because he's still under contract. So
No. But let's
yeah.
say okay, 2 more years. I see. But once his
Yeah.
contract's up, will this tarnish his reputation?
No, because even if you're like a middle of the like if you're like a franchise who has historically done poorly throughout the years, you want to sign that guy because controversy still brings tickets, still brings money into the arena.
Mhm.
So and he's still a top 10 player. So that'll sell seats. That'll sell bodies to the seats. So no matter what, they're gonna pretty much sign him to a really good contract.
Okay. Interesting.
So what's your storyline?
Okay, so since you talked about that, I think I'll talk about. Okay, before we start, I want to give you a quick fun fact, and it doesn't really warrant its own storyline, but I just want to give you a fun fact. So in League of Legends, the mid lane position is known as probably like the most hard carry position. It's the hardest position, and we usually import players from Europe, Korea, China, mostly Europe and Korea, to play that role.
Mhm.
A year ago, when teams were announced, there was only one North American player named Golden Glue that was in the starting lineup for the beginning of the season. By the end of the season, 3 additional imports weren't cutting it, and they ended up the season with 4 North American out of 10. This season, we're starting with 6 North Americans out of 10, which is crazy, compared to a year ago, 1 out of 10 to now 6 out of 10. I think teams are starting to realize that, like, maybe it's worth investing and that some of these, unless you're importing like an all-star, you might as well just save money and use a North American player.
Mhm.
Anyways, so you talked about, team players being traded. So I'm going to talk about Bobby. One of the biggest storylines this season is Cloud9 buying out Perks. So I'm going to hit you with this, okay? Perks is considered, if not the best, at least tied for the best Western League of Legends player of all time. He's from Europe. Last year, he ended up, I think, 3rd and 4th in the World Championship. He's won Europe, I think, 8 times. So that's like 4 years in a row. I think he only lost only one split. Is that right? I think he only lost one split to Fnatic. But anyway, so he's won 8 European championships with a bunch of different teammates. He's been the only constant factor in this team called G2. He used to be a mid laner, okay? But he was like, I want to win Worlds. So then he convinced another mid laner to join his team to play mid for him, and he moved to a different role because he wanted to play with this guy so badly. I'm sure the NBA has different positions, right? So imagine 2 people from the same position just being like, hey, I don't think anyone else is good enough to be, I don't know, point guard. Is point guard a position?
Yeah, so like pretty much how last year LeBron moved from power forward to be a point guard in order to acclimate Anthony Davis. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that, exactly. So
Yeah.
and then not only did he switch roles, he became one of the best, at least not this year, but the year before that, he became probably one of the best at that role. It's called AD carry for that year. And he not only did he become one of the best, he completely changed the role. He brought in champions because he has a champion pool for mid lane. He started playing some of those champions in the bot lane, and people were forced to learn how to play against those champions, And he's such a fun player to watch. Anyways, so he hates that role. So he was like, I fucking hate this role. But he's a good guy, and maybe to his detriment, he was like, hey, I'm not kicking out the guy that I convinced to join my team. He told his owner, trade me away. and it was controversial because he wanted to go to the second best team in Europe called Fnatic to play mid for them, but the owner still has him for 2 more years and was like, "Hey, I'll trade you anywhere besides Fnatic." And it was really controversial, especially for European fans, because they were like, "Hey, we wanted to stay in Europe, and if you don't let him stay with Fnatic, he's gonna have to go to North America." So then he goes to North America. So anyway, so he gets a lot of offers, and C9 Cloud9 signs him. And this is kind of a big deal because it's like LeBron going to the European League. It's just
Mhm.
it's huge. Like he talks about elevating the league. He's just gonna get North America to do well at Worlds, and people are excited for this. He's going to Cloud9, a team notoriously known for making all their roster moves work, but except for one. But that's a different story. They're very ballsy with their moves, and they had one of the best teams last year, but they fell off at playoffs. And it's kind of interesting because at the end of last year, they said we're keeping the team together, but now a few months later, they kicked out 2 people, replaced them with Perks being one of them, joined the team. And not only was he one of the biggest signings ever, supposedly the rumored number to buy him out and get him and salary and everything, I think for 2 years is going to be $11.75 million to play,
Oh wow.
which is I would say is probably the biggest salary buyout in North American history. Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. I'm pretty excited. I think, and I'll explain a little bit more why with my next story, but we're not there yet. It's gonna be really interesting. I hope so. I mean as someone, I'm not a Europe hater, but I was jealous because he always wins, dude. He's won with different teammates, year after year. He got second place at the World Championship 2 years ago. He got third and fourth last year, and he just has like the X factor to make teams good.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping, and Cloud9 is known for their magic, so I'm hoping that they combine their magic and they're able to just do well at Worlds. But I mean, we'll see.
All right. That sounds really interesting. Just like pretty much making like a super team, or is that what you're pretty much saying? Like
I wouldn't
everyone
call
is
this a
super.
super team, to be honest, and I'll explain a bit more once I go over power rankings. But but this it's a huge sign up, and they're kind of a super team, but not really.
Mhm.
He's actually going to be reunited with one of the players that he won Europe with, I think 2 years in a row, over at Cloud9, because another player from Cloud9 is from one of his team versions from the past. But you can go ahead and talk about your next storyline.
All right, my number 2 storyline relates a lot to a guy from Europe actually. So this guy, his name is Giannis Antetokounmpo, pretty much regarded as the
Which country?
two-time defend. He's from Greece.
Okay.
So he's the reigning 2-time MVP. Um, he's from the Milwaukee Bucks. He just signed today a 5-year, 228 supermax contract, which makes him the highest paid NBA player of all time
Over LeBron?
over LeBron.
Wait, don't you guys have salary caps?
There is salary caps, but because that was a team that he was drafted into, and he's played there for so long, that they pretty much offer him the supermax and sign him to a extended contract. He was already on that team, so it was
Mhm,
a contract extension per se.
mhm. Oh, I
So
see.
the reason why that's so significant is because that never happens. Usually during these times, you would people were saying that this guy was going to leave the team and go join the Warriors and make another super team. Everybody was predicting that. It's like, oh, he's going to leave a small market team because Milwaukee is pretty much known as a small market. Leave that franchise to the dust and go join a big market team in the Bay Area in California. Join Steph Curry, join Clay Thompson, Draymond Green, and form a super team to compete for multiple NBA championships. He had 1 year left in his contract, and all he had to do was pretty much sit this year out, and pretty much he can sign wherever he wanted. But instead of doing that, which so many stars have done before, he actually signed an extension to stay with this team, which is so rare, like I've talked about before, to do for these players. Just because loyalty is like so hard to find nowadays, um, with today's NBA players. But this guy has been remaining super humble, to his city. His The owners and the GMs have tried to sign the best guys for him. They signed Drew Holiday to compete with him, so he is going to be one of the teams to watch, one of the players to watch this year as they seek to make their first NBA Finals appearance since the 1970s.
I have a
And
question.
again, yeah, go ahead.
So you said he was drafted from college, right?
No, okay. So this guy, he was from
Yeah, he's
he
from
played in
Greece.
Greece. In
Okay.
Greece, so he's one of those guys that no one knew who he was, like when he was like a 17 or 18-year-old kid. So he was drafted 13th. Um, so
How
nobody
do you
knew,
get how
like
do
he
you
was in
get
the house.
drafted if you're not in the college scene?
So the way you can get drafted is you either play 1 year in college or you're playing in Europe
Oh,
or another country. So generally, they pick people from college because they're familiar. They're
known
known to like
quantities.
yeah, they're known qualities, and they know like all the American like habits and American rules. And in Europe, it's kind of different rules, different
Because you never
system
know how
over
you're
there.
gonna acclimate, right? To the
Exactly.
culture.
And then
Okay.
the European League is a lot more different. Usually like you have like kids, like 15-year-olds playing with a bunch of like 20, 30-year-olds. So kind of a different league. People like
That's crazy.
pretty don't take it seriously, but it's getting more serious as the years go by. And yeah, he was a guy. He was a little kid from Greece. Um, Pretty much no one knew who he was. He did not become. He wasn't really regarded as a really high draft pick. Again, he was number 13, I believe. So not number one pick per se. Just a kid that they took a chance on just to see what he was going to turn out to be, and he turns out to be one of like the best players in the league right now.
Yeah, that's
So
kind
yeah,
of.
so that's pretty cool to see like
That's
how a team he rewarded the team with his loyalty because they believed in him from the very beginning when no one knew who he was, and now he's going to stay there pretty much for the foreseeable future.
so in league we have teams. So people get mad because, like I said, people say the only reason you should be importing is if you import an all-star. They don't want people that are washed. And last year they imported the 100 Thieves imported this mid laner from Oceania, Australia, and it was just like no one. And people were really upset because they're like, you should use a North American player instead. This guy's dog shit. And they're like, no, we're gonna take a gamble and we believe in him. And then he got dumpstered on for the whole year. And fans came after the org, and they clown on the org and him a lot, and they gave him a lot of hate. And they were like, he's a developing talent. We like what we see in him. So it's just funny,
Mhm.
like it's just funny. I don't know. So let's say this pick with the Greek with what's his name, Anthony. What's his name again?
Uh, his name is Giannis Antetokounmpo, but
Okay,
people call him the
I'm
Greek freak.
the Greek freak. That's kind of mean, I think. But um, let's say that move didn't work out. Would they have gotten any flack for it?
Not necessarily. A lot of teams do those European picks, and they've been panning out recently. But and before, like in the 2000s or the 90s, you would get a lot of flack for it because people would just automatically assume that they're like soft. There was like that soft European tag would come in
Hmm.
because people were ignorant about the European
Hmm.
leagues. But now, as kids are getting better diets, better trainings in the Euros, they're becoming a lot better prospects and
Hmm.
actually good picks to choose from.
Hmm. That's fascinating. Okay, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go into the next
So
storyline.
go for it.
All right, so I think this one's got to be talked about. So the next storyline is so TSM had Double F and Bjergsen. Double F was an 80 carry from North America. Bjergsen was a European mid laner that's been in North America since like 2013. He's been here forever. He's considered North America now. they both retired on the same year. So they retired playing on the biggest team. They both retired at the same time, and I would say 90% of the league fans are probably fans of both players. Like, like 90% of the league fans consider like TSM and Double F and Bjergsen as like the goats, and most people they're like the top player that they follow. So the LCS is gonna have to see how they do this year without them, because most of the storylines revolve around them too. Like, can they come back? Can they keep winning? How are they gonna do? It's kind of crazy because the Double Lift retirement you kind of see because he's been kind of like slacking off a bit. But Bjergsen's one of the hardest working players. He's actually going to be transitioning into the coaching role. So at least we still have him in the scene. But what's fascinating about him moving to the coaching role is he's probably the first like top tier player that goes into the coaching role at like a prime point in his career. Like, in the past, we've had like top tier players fall off, become coaches. He's still the last time he played North America, a top tier player. Like, he was still like dumping on kids. And I think it's gonna be crazy to have a coach that actually commands your respect. A coach that can be like, hey, I mean, I don't know, I don't think he'll do this, but he could easily be like, hey, I can replace you. Like, fucking step up, So it's gonna be interesting seeing how he does. But not only him as a coach, but TSM as an organization, see how they recover from losing two of their biggest all-stars. They're actually completely changing the roster. It's funny because I think for the past 4 years, TSM always changes junglers. But this year, they change everyone but their jungler. So that will be interesting to see how it goes. I don't really like their team, but we'll talk about that in like the power rankings. But yeah, it's gonna be super interesting. Like, I mean, like he's considered probably Bjergsen and Double F are like the best North American. People argue who's the best but they are both considered just top two easily, and you could argue about who's better. Bjergsen's have probably better international performances and better performances, but Double F has won more tournaments, and they're just both really fun to watch. Like, I became a fan of the league because of Double Lift, so seeing them go is going to be interesting to see how the production can kind of have storylines outside of them too. But we'll see. I'm excited, but I'm nervous, and yeah, I mean that's just what happened with TSM. I am excited to see where they go.
Awesome. Yeah. So, like, do you think they're gonna be good, or we'll talk about them in the power
Yeah,
rankings?
yeah, that's fine. You can go into your next point.
Yeah. All right. My third and final point will be, the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, generally, they are the little brother of the New York Knicks. They were the franchise that hasn't won an NBA title in their history, has only made 2 NBA final appearances in the mid 2000s, and now all of a sudden they got arguably the second best player in the NBA, or even number one player in the NBA, considering the last time we saw Kevin Durant on the court, he was winning back-to-back championships with the Golden State Warriors. So Kevin Durant, he left the Warriors last year to go to the Brooklyn Nets to form a super team with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving used to be LeBron's teammate with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Kyrie was like LeBron's number 2, and Durant was like the Warriors number 1. So the Warriors number 1 and the Cavaliers number 2, the teams who were facing each other in 4 straight finals, they teamed up to join in Brooklyn, and they're gonna arguably be a finals contender because Kevin Durant. Let's face it, he has beaten LeBron James in the past 2 finals that he's faced him, and that's the one guy I do not want to face if I am the Lakers.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be scared if the Brooklyn Nets. The things that do make me pause for concern about Brooklyn, they got a first year coach, Steve Nash. Arguably, he's one of the best point guards of all time. This is gonna be his first year ever coaching.
Oh, cool. I've heard of him.
Yeah, Steve Nash. Yeah.
Who did he play with again?
He
Lakers,
was
right?
he was really big with the Phoenix Suns and the Lakers. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so he has to manage a lot of egos. Again, Kevin Durant, not really a guy that is really nice to the media. Kyrie Irving, again, this guy has a lot of controversy, flat Earth, calls the media pawns.
Oh God.
Um, he has he's like his whole woke agenda. So so he's like gonna be crazy just dealing with that ego. And then Durant and Irving, they kind of want to add this guy James Harden into their team to be traded into. So if that happens, oh man, that drama is gonna be insane
Hmm.
every
And
day.
Steve Nash is supposed to take care of that.
Yeah, Steve Nash, he's like a really
That's
nice
crazy.
guy. He's
I have a
like,
question.
yeah.
How often do players transition to coach? Is that the norm? Are there any coaches that weren't players at any point?
Usually like these coaches or they either played in college or they played in the NBA. So like not every single coach played in the NBA, but they do have some basketball background. So like the Heat coach, he wasn't necessarily an NBA guy, but he was like a video room assistant, and he rose up the ranks. Um, Phil Jackson, one of the best coaches of all time, he used to be a player and eventually became a coach. So like you generally, if you're a player, you become a coach, but not 100% of the time.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm gonna go into my last point or my last storyline to follow. So, I think every team in North America, um, really shook up their team. I think the team that changed the least, and is the team I want to talk about, is the Hundred Thieves. So, like I mentioned, Golden Guardians sold their team to 100 Thieves because they needed funds, and 100 Thieves was arguably the fourth or fifth best team last year. People could even argue that third. TSM kind of fluked their way to win, but that's a different story. And it's going to be really interesting seeing if this team can keep their synergy from last year. And not only can they keep their synergy, they're also upgrading to in the top lane to probably one of the best players slash top laners in the whole region with this player called Someday. And I am interested in seeing if they can keep their synergy, they could probably win the tournament and they could carry that morale at least and get a pretty good record and may hopefully keep developing throughout the season. I'm a big fan of their mid laner Demonte, and I'm hoping that they do well. He's a North American mid laner. He's pretty funny, dude. Loves the memes, and I hope they do well. Um, yeah, I mean, we'll see. 100 Thieves has been like in a rebuilding phase. So when they debuted, like in 2018, they were kind of like the the people kind of clowned them for their name, but then they had cool apparel, and then people kind of clowned their team, but then their team did well, and then they went to Worlds. They had a bunch of drama. This past 2 years has been rebuilding, and they finally have acquired a roster that can probably, you know, do well, potentially top three. So so we'll see. 100 Thieves is definitely one of the more controversial teams. They have a pretty big fan base of being a new team. So we'll see how they do. Um, but if you have nothing to add, we can go into our serious power rankings now.
All right, let's go to our series power rankings.
All right, you can go first. I mean, I probably won't comment much on it, but you go off, Carlos. You know, tell me why they're gonna win, and we'll see. So it's on the screen, so you can go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, so we're talking about first of all, let's talk about the Eastern Conference power rankings. So, like I said before, number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks with the brand new contract. Giannis is gonna be really motivated to get that MVP again for the third time in a row and get the number 1 seed. Brooklyn Nets again, like I mentioned, they'll be contenders with Durant and Irving. Boston Celtics always there, contenders. Sixers, Miami Heat, Pacers, they'll all be fighting for that 4 through 6 seed. But these are the six teams I foresee for sure making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And as we scroll down here, these are the teams that are going to be on the edge. Either they're barely going to make the play-in tournament, or they're going to be really trash. So Raptors, they won the championship 2 years ago. They lost all their good guys, and I don't see it happening anymore. But they still have that spirit. So I'll see them like a 7 seed.
I have a question real quick. If you don't mind.
Wizards, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, just for clarification. So I'm just now realizing the NBA has Canadian teams.
Yeah, Canadian. We only have one Canadian team. We used to have another team in Vancouver, but they moved to Memphis. But that's the only team that
No,
that is
interesting.
in Canada.
Okay, sorry for interrupting. I just really needed to know.
This year they're gonna yeah. So this year they're gonna be playing in Tampa Bay because Canada is not gonna allow teams to travel in and out of Canada due to COVID. So they're technically the Tampa Bay Raptors
I
for this
see.
year, but yeah, it's gonna be tough not having that fans there. 8 Wizards, they got Westbrook, they got Bradley Beal, and I think Westbrook can make the team into a playoff contender. 9 Atlanta Hawks, they got Trey Young, Gallinari, they got my boy Rajon Rondo from the champion Los Angeles Lakers. So I think the Hawks will be really good now. They'll be in the play-in tournament. And the Charlotte Hornets, even though I'll give Gordon Hayward a lot of flack, he is a good player, even though he is overpaid. But he has this guy named LaMelo Ball as his teammates,
What?
and I think he can trust the process and become. Yeah, so LaMelo Ball is Lonzo Ball's brother,
Yeah.
and people are saying that LaMelo is better than Lonzo. So we'll see if LaMelo's worth the hype. I'm starting to believe in it, and I think the Charlotte Hornets will be the 10th and final team in the play-in tournament.
Is LaMelo the middle child?
He's LaMelo's
Sorry, can you repeat that, Carlos?
yeah. All right, and now yeah, he's the youngest.
Okay. Wait, didn't that guy go play in
He's the
Europe
youngest
or
child.
something?
So there's 3 childs. Lonzo, he's with the Pelicans. The middle one, he was the one who got in trouble in China.
With UCLA, right?
LiAngelo Ball.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, so the youngest is playing in the NBA
And
now?
then LaMelo. Yeah. So
Interesting.
the oldest and the youngest are in the NBA. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go
All
ahead.
right. My Western Conference power rankings. Top 2 teams, LA teams, like I've been saying before, they're gonna be contenders, veteran players, motivated. 3, I got the Dallas Mavericks with Mark Cuban as the owner. He's gonna do all the right moves to ensure. And I think Luka Doncic has the opportunity to get MVP this year as well. 4, Denver Nuggets. They made the Western Finals last year. They'll still be a good team with Jokic, and they'll be up there. Blazers, Trailblazers, and Jazz are running up the top 6. Nothing to say about them, but they'll still be good. And now let's go to my play-in tournament people. The Warriors, even though they lost Thompson, they still got Steph, they still got Draymond, they still got the rookie, and I think they're going to be motivated to make the playoffs because last year they were the worst team in the NBA, and a franchise like that doesn't see themselves as the worst team forever. So they're going to have that spirit to make the playoffs. 8 Phoenix Suns, they got Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and the Phoenix Suns I predict will make the playoffs for the first time since 2010. Mark it here. The Phoenix Suns will make the playoffs this year. Number 9, the Houston Rockets. Again, just because I think Harden's gonna like either quit on the team or get traded. So Rockets, people were saying they're gonna beat the Lakers last year. It never happened. And now look at them. their franchise is in disarray. Kind of hilarious to see. 10, New Orleans Pelicans. They got Lonzo Ball, they got Brandon Ingram, and they got the boy Zion Williamson. They're gonna be a really fun team to watch. Pretty much the team I'm gonna be watching every night just because they're so much fun to watch. They're dunking and running all over the place, but they don't play any defense. So those games always end up being like 140 to 130. So New Orleans Pelicans will be the 10th and final team to make the playoffs. And then the rest of the teams, I mean, the West is going to be hard this year, but it's going to, if you're the Thunder or the Spurs, your best days are really behind you, especially for the Spurs. They were really good in the 2000s with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Ginobili. Now they just, I don't know, they got Popovich and a bunch of guys, but yeah, Spurs. Sorry, Spurs fans. You're not going to be good this year.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I might use this as conversation topics. I'll be like, yeah, dude, the Lakers definitely winning the Western Conference, dude, and I definitely feel like the Utah Jazz is gonna do well this year. Anyways, let's pull up mine, Eric. Let me know. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna start from bottom to the top. So this is my power rankings. On the in 10th place, we have Golden Guardians. So I love underdog stories, and if they do well, great. I'll eat my words and I'll cheer them on. But this team, what's notorious about this team is they have two players coming straight from the collegiate scene. So Carlos, for you, you probably don't understand this, but like most of the time, players will go from like playing the game amateur, and then they'll play for this thing called the Academy League, which is kind of like a B league, and then they'll play for the main league. Um, Golden Guardians is the first team I think to go get people straight from college to the main stage. Usually they have like trial periods for them in the Academy League, the B league, and then they'll let them play in the main stage if they do well. But they're taking a gamble, and we'll see if it pays off. Some people are saying they're gonna have stage fright, they're gonna choke. I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, I don't have high hopes for them, and it would be irrational for me to like, how do I say this? Rank them any higher. I don't think they will. But I mean, we'll see. Let's see. Next team, Dignitas. So Dignitas is I honestly don't know what they're doing. Like I wanna rank them lower, but I just can't with Golden Guardians. The only reason why they're not lost is because of the only reason why they're not lost is because the Golden Guardians is having a team be like super inexperienced and stuff. We'll see. But Dignitas has like no firepower at all. They're using a bunch of rookies, and a couple players are kind of washed up, and they have this player called Dardoch, who's was kind of a promising player playing with the support called Aframu, and they've had beef in the past. So I'm sure when there's a paycheck involved, I'm pretty sure they'll put their beef aside. But I don't think this team has any firepower. We've seen their roster. We've seen their top lane Fake God. We've seen him get dumpstered on. He can barely hold his own. Dardoch is good, but Dardoch, dude, there's a whole documentary on Dardoch about how toxic he is. Like this guy has played probably for like more than half the teams in the league, because every team thinks they can change him. Everyone just falls in love with a bad boy. They think they can change him. They don't. Dude's got talent, but he hasn't been. He doesn't have like, at least we haven't seen him be emotionally mature to be able to be a good teammate. So Legal we've seen him playing in the LCS, dumpstered on. Neo is a new player that they're trying out. Hopefully he does well. Aframu was one of the really good players a few years ago, one of the OGs, but he does shine where he's paired up with a newer, younger AD carry. I just think he's probably doesn't have the tools to really enable his team. Dignitas as an org they're just horrible. I don't know what they're doing, honestly. Next, we're gonna talk about Immortals. So Immortals, this team. The only reason why this team makes a little more sense is because on the top end they have Revenge. Revenge is one of the top ranked players in the solo queue ladder, which means when they play like the game online, he does really well. And I think he has a couple accounts in the top 10. Cersei is a European jungler. I don't know how he'll do. I hope he does well. But the reason why is I'm kind of ranking them a little higher is because they have more firepower. Insanity has shown that he kind of knows how to. He does well. He's done well in the main stage, and I'm hoping he can stay doing well. And Raz and Destiny are two Oceanic players that have built-in synergy. They did well in Oceania, and hopefully they can translate that to North America. And I think that's enough to put them over Dignitas and Golden Guardians. The next team is Evil Geniuses. So Evil Geniuses has Impact, Svenskeren, Jisuke, definitely, and Ignar. And I don't think this. The thing is, this team is crazy. Like they have Impact is stable. Svenskeren is crazy. Jisuke is crazy. Definitely stable. Ignar is crazy. So this team can be really good, but I also feel like they can be really bad. They have too many coin for the players. Like people that like go for crazy plays, and Impact doesn't do that, and neither does Definitely. So I just feel like they're not gonna have synergy as a team, and that's kind of why I think as players individually, most of them are good, but I just feel like when you pick them up as together as a team, I just don't think they click. Next, COG. So this is probably my most controversial choice. COG. So COG is kind of so this year, Dignitas, Immortals, and Golden Guardians are using a bunch of new players. Okay, and FlyQuest too, but haven't gotten to them yet. And Dignitas COG was able to pick up all the role players that kind of fell through the cracks. Like all these players that like have been good. They've been on winning teams, but they're kind of known for being role players. And the team itself is Finn, who was in the third place team in Europe last year, Broxa, who was in the third place team of North America last year, Team Liquid, and he's also won Europe, and he was second at Worlds 3 years ago now. Paul Velter, who has I think 4 championships under his belt, Wild Turtle, who has around 5 championships under his belt, and Smoothie, who was once revered as one of the top supports in the region, and they kind of picked up the scraps. Like they have they're all good players. Like they've all been on most of them have been on winning teams. 3 of the 5 players have been on winning teams. So I think it's gonna be really interesting because if this team can work and do well, it might make teams not want to invest in rookies. They'll probably go the recycling player route. And we'll see. A lot of teams get criticized for recycling players, and that's what COG is doing. So we'll see how they do. I'm kind of curious. A lot of people think they're going to be one of the worst teams, but I think the other teams that I mentioned are going to be worse. I think Povel's is really smart. I think Brox is really smart. And I think Wild Turtle is really smart. So I feel like they'll get some wins, which puts them at 6. Next is going to be FlyQuest. So FlyQuest, I put Licorice on the top, Jose Diodo, Jungle, mid Palafox, ADC, Johnson, support Diamond. So I think Licorice is still the best top laner in the region. And I think he has enough macro sense to really, make the team work. I think Palafox is a really good mid laner. He is actually someone that just got brought up from the Academy League. It's someone that people have been claiming to be tried out on the main stage, so we'll see how he does. Diamond too. Diamond, actually, fun fact, Licorice, Palafox, and Diamond were all bought from Cloud9. Palafox and Diamond were part of the B team for Cloud9. And Cloud9 is known as being one of the teams that actually has good B teams. And Licorice was one of the best players in Cloud9, but they sold them to get enough money to buy Perks, which is the guy that I mentioned earlier. Johnson's one of the newer, really good AD carries. So this team can work. And I think what's the most interesting part about this team is Jose Diodo. He's actually a Latin American player. He's one out of the 2. The other one's in Dignitas, actually, the AD carry. But Jose Diodo, he's from Argentina. He played at Worlds. He did really well. His team didn't win much, but he did really well, and people noticed, and they brought him, and they're taking a gamble with him, and hopefully that gamble pays off. As a Latino, personally, I'm all for it, and I hope he does well.
Represent.
Represent. Even if he's from Argentina, but whatever. The next team is TSM. So TSM has Huni, top lane, this guy has won in Korea and Europe. He's a world's runner-up. Spica, he was the jungler last year. He's the only returning member. Power Evil, he's a pretty good player too, formerly from Europe. Lost is an Oceanic player, and Sword Art got second place at Worlds. Second place at Worlds this year. This team, individually, all these pieces are good. I don't know how they'll do as a team. I think Huni's kind of been washed for a while. Hopefully he does well. I don't think he's been good for the past couple of years, but we'll see. And honestly, the only reason why I'm letting this team so high is because of Sword Art, their support. Second place at Worlds this year. I think they paid him like $3 million over 2 years too. Like this guy's getting like a lot of money. Hopefully he does well. I want to see competition in the league. But I just don't think they click. But they have enough individual talent to probably surpass the rest of the teams that I mentioned, which lays them out at 4th. And now we're going to go into the top 3 teams. So number 3 is going to be 100 Thieves. So like I mentioned earlier, 100 Thieves was bought out by Golden Guardians. So 100 Thieves was bought out the team by Golden Guardians. The Golden Guardians roster got bought out by 100 Thieves. And they upgraded the top lane. Someday, the only returning member for 100 Thieves, probably one of the best players in the region. And I think they're going to be scary. I think their synergy, and I think the upgrade with Someday is going to be amazing because Damonte is really good at playing to their side lanes. And Someday's one of the best top laners in the region. And FBI, which is the 80 carry, is good. Is one of the best bot laners in the region. Last year they got he was labeled as the best bot laner in the whole region. So, oh yeah, their team is someday top, jungle closer, mid Damonte, 80 carry FBI, and support Huhi. I'm excited. I like 100 Thieves. I like their content. I like their merch. I like this team. So I hope they do well. I would like to see that. I want to see Damonte back at Worlds. I'm a Damonte fanboy. But I mean, only time will tell. And second team is gonna be Cloud9. So I already talked about Cloud9 a bit. Perks. So they have Fudge in top lane, Blabber, jungle, mid Perks, 80 carries Ven, and support Vulcan. This team is probably so Fudge is a downgrade from Licorice, who went to FlyQuest. But Perks is a huge upgrade over Niski, their former mid laner. Well, I mean, it's a huge question mark. I think for me the biggest question mark is Fudge. If Licorice were still in this team, I would put them at number 1. However, because Fudge is an unknown quantity, I don't have quite the faith to pull the trigger on it and put them at number 1. But I already kind of talked about this team and how they have Perks, so we'll see. Perks and Ven have played before in the past, and hopefully, they can recreate some of their successes. Also, their new coach, Mithy, used to play with Perks back in the day too. So, I mean, the tools are there for Perks to succeed. And now we get to number 1, Team Liquid. The reason why they didn't put Cloud9 number 1. So Team Liquid is the biggest money spender in the league. They have a lot of money from investors, and they bought out the best European top laner last year. They got the best North American jungler last year, and they kind of tied in their 2 weakest roles. So it's going to be Alfire in the top lane, jungle Centauran, mid Jensen, ADC tactical, and support core JJ. Core JJ is probably the best player in the whole region. Tactical is this really promising 80 carry. Jensen's probably probably the second best mid lane in the region now after Perks. But he has immense talent, so we'll see how he does. Centauran, best jungler last year. Had a huge redeeming arc. We'll see how he does. And Alfari was the best European top laner last year. This is the definition of a super team. So this is why we can't call Cloud9 a super team, because this is a super team. Like, these are some of the best in their roles. Super teams don't always work out, but they just have so much individual talent. You would be crazy to not put them at number 1. This team is scary. Like, this team, if they can make it work, they can actually contend in the world stage. And as a North American fan, I can only hope, right? So that pretty much sums up my power rankings. I don't know if you have any comments or questions, but
those top 2 were pretty much like similar to like mine.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but it's kind of scary close. Actually, let me see if I can pull up yours, for myself at least, just because I want to see how it compares to mine. So when I compare yours to mine, let me see. Your thing is loading. So Equal 9, like Golden Guardian, 100 Thieves, TSM, COG, Evil Geniuses. Dude, we're so crazy close. I feel like you cheated, dude.
No, dude, I didn't recognize those top 4, and the rest was just like random. So
yeah, but those are our power rankings. Hopefully, we'll see. When does your season end for you?
Season ends. Well, they haven't announced the schedule about when it ends yet, but I know it officially begins next Tuesday. So by the time of the next podcast, we'll already have our first games played.
Okay, I'm looking forward to hearing an update on that. I don't think you'll hear much from my side as far as like league teams playing until like mid-January. But there's other topics we can talk about. We'll discuss that later. But do you have anything else you want to say before we end the show?
Again, shout out to the fans. Shout out to everyone commenting and subscribing. And I know we're only just beginning, but all the support and all the likes really mean a lot to us. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. Leave us feedback. We really enjoy doing this, and I just want to give a huge thanks to Eric, our producer. Don't quit on us. We like working with you. With nothing else to add, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See ya.